my personal vision statement is kind of like, how can we leverage the creative arts for like spiritual and social change? That's always been my ethic in every worship pastor job I've ever had, and everything I do is how can I take this art form to not just do something cool with art, because that's big, but also to help people out, to serve people, to nourish people, to get people excited about life again.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio, and Ayiesha Woods, Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and musician. Together, they talk with artists and industry insiders to discover our connection between music and faith. You can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter at Between Grooves. Now, here's James and Ayiesha.
Ayiesha, I've been so looking forward to our get-together today.
Listen,
we are in for a treat.
Well, tell the people what they're in for.
Well, our guest today, no stranger to Between the Grooves. In fact, he helped grow this thing, to start this thing. And this time on the
really, really cool.
Oh yeah, and this time he's on the other side of the table. In fact, I think we need to cue the audience applause here. With coffee in hand, former co-host, Mr. Drew Brown.
I know nothing of your music. Please,
neither do I.
Please bring me up to speed. He said, neither do you. Bring me up to speed. Like, this is my first time getting a chance to see you, and so I want to know more about you and kind of what you're doing, what you got going on.
So many years ago, I was a Canadian Christian artist here, and I was traveling and touring and had a bunch of hit singles. Spent lots of time in Nashville, sort of playing the Nashville roulette, if you will, just seeing what would work, what would stick, and that was good. Made some great friends and great relationships, and lots of like almost there, and cutting a couple singles, and nothing quite working out. But still, it was a great experience. Learned a lot, and thankfully, I have a lot of good relationships out of that experience.
And you made tons of money doing that.
Tons of money.
As a Canadian artist.
That's right. And being a full-time artist in Canada is actually kind of rare. There's not a whole lot of them. There's a few. There's quite a few.
Oh, yeah?
But like that's not a regular thing, where like all my friends, and whether they're Nashville or wherever, they're all like full-time and able to kind of do it and support themselves. So it was a rarity for someone like me who was... I mean, I was a worship pastor for a while, and obviously I worked here at Between the Grooves and other things, but generally speaking, 90% of my income came from traveling, touring, merch, whatever the case might be.
Nice.
And then I sort of slowed down the Christian stuff because I was going through a pretty big issue with my faith and trying to sort of struggling in that, and I could not sort of reconcile singing these songs that I didn't fully believe. So I took a pause and I started writing songs without words because I still wanted to make music, and music was still my creative outlet, and it was still my way that connected to spirit, that connected to Christ. And so it's like I don't feel comfortable singing the words yet, but at the same time I cannot deny that I'm still a person of faith, even though I'm struggling in my faith. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting season, a very strange season for me. And so I started this project called Hymns for the Architect. And originally it was supposed to be like prayers and liturgies and sort of story songs around my faith. And then eventually I sort of took all the lyrics and all the words out, and I would just write instrumental music, or I would invite my friends to actually write words for me, so in prayer form. So it was either like totally instrumental music for studying, for reading, for journaling, for worship times, for meditations. I met a few Buddhist monks who use it in their temples. People use it for yoga. So it's very it's being used and being played in many different areas. And then the other part of it is I do this thing where it's called Prayers of the People. I would invite people to kind of like share their words about what's happening in the moment. So during the pandemic, I did this series called these Pandemic Prayers of the People. And so people would sort of share their prayers of lament, of hope, of despair, whatever the case might be. And we sort of collaborate on that.
And so you're a musician.
I'm a musician through and through. I'm a creative through and through. This is what I do. I do lots of film and photography and just music stuff. And so now I'm back writing words again. I feel I've gained a language. I've gained sort of like a perspective of where I kind of stand, both as in my faith, but also as a human in this crazy world.
And you have another persona as well.
I do.
Actually, you have two.
Am I allowed to talk about that on this show?
Sure, why not? You've got actually two personas.
Yes.
Right? You've got the one at Christmas time, and then you've got the one that kind of evolved during the pandemic, didn't
That's
it?
right. That's right. So, well, hopefully it's the same one that I'm thinking about for Christmas, the Black Santa thing.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Hopefully. It was like, what else would he be thinking?
Let's not talk about it here. So I do a bunch of Christmas shows, and it's really fun and really silly, and play up the whole Black Santa thing, and it's great. It's cool. It started off just as like a silly like thing on my Instagram or Twitter, and then sort of evolved into something bigger and sillier, it's been great and fun. And going to be doing it again this year. I need to get a new suit because I've lost a little bit of weight.
Well, I didn't know you actually had a suit for it, too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because I mean, like, why not? I mean, it's a terrible suit, but who cares? So I do that. And it's just fun and just just ridiculous and sort of poke fun at myself and but also enjoy the songs of Christmas. And then I had this thing called Bourbon Brown, which is that was kind of born in the middle of the pandemic. Actually, not in the middle. Like the second day, I was.
Like what are you going to do now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I started playing these online shows, and it was sort of like live with Bourbon Brown, and I would take live requests. So every song was a request from people, which was great for two reasons. First of all, it allowed me to kind of like share these songs and stories with people, but also the fun part was half the songs I actually didn't know how to play. So people are watching me sort of struggle through these songs, and which made for like really funny and really silly moments, but also endearing because we're all kind of like going through this weird time of being alone and isolated. So they can sort of laugh at my foolishness trying to learn songs as we go. And it was great. It grew into a pretty big thing for a while, and I think I did it for like almost a year and a half. And now I'm sort of moved that idea. Now I do it live on stage where I do all request nights. So now I play in pubs and bars and theaters and in halls and whatever. And it's all requests. People come with their requests and I will play it. Sometimes I play it really well and I'm very proud of myself. The other 80% of the time, 80%.
I was waiting to hear what that percentage was. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. But it's great. And it's fun.
80 is a high number.
Yeah, it is. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, but if you get paid for it, who cares?
And that's the thing. And people love it, and people come out, and I think it's fun to see people not fail, but kind of like try their best and miss the mark in a safe place where you're all kind of in it together. You're all kind of in on the joke. So it's no one's laughing at me personally, but we're all going like, oh, this is so dumb. I cannot believe he ruined this song, my favorite song. That's funny.
Oh, gosh.
But yet there's still something cool in that when I get it right.
Yeah.
And so it's
Or
like
when you finally get it right.
That's more like it. You're right. So it's been really, really great. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years, sort of like in live spaces. And that's been great.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think of just a few weeks ago, we were celebrating my husband's 50th birthday, and my one of my sons, he turned 7 on the same day. So we're traveling, and they had karaoke night at the resort. And everybody's like, Ayiesha, you should sing, you should sing, you should sing. I had like a bona fide, for real karaoke experience. I sang Got You Under My Skin by Frank Sinatra.
Oh, yes.
And when I tell you, like, I love that song. I didn't mean for it to be a real karaoke experience, but it was. In every bit, like every sense. And it was bad. Like
that's Michael Jackson bad we're talking about. No, okay. Sorry.
I don't know.
No, it was
I don't know how. I don't know if there's any good way of determining if somebody is a good singer through karaoke.
No, I don't think there is.
But when I was on vacation in Mexico a few months ago,
Here we go.
Did you do it?
No. Are you kidding? No. I was that would have been a great story.
Yeah, it would have.
But no, my wife and again, I don't want to dwell on my age or anything like that.
Here we go.
But my wife and I we decided to skip the night show. You know how they always have shows and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
But our room or our chateau or whatever you want to call it that we were in was very close to where all the entertainment was happening. And can I tell you, it was karaoke night, and I heard this one singer that was just phenomenal. Like, I don't
Really?
maybe they were just hitting play on a CD because there was no volunteers or something, but she was amazing.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, if you can make it singing karaoke, then there's probably a possible musical career
If
for
you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Exactly. Now, I'm sure, Ayiesha, you got lots of stuff that you want to jump in whenever you want, but I do have to ask you,
Yes.
when you left Between the Grooves, and there was, this was coming out of the pandemic and stuff, and you needed to focus on your career and whatnot. Now, I had heard that there was something going on in your town, and they were looking for somebody to oversee some of the creative stuff. And is that something you're doing, or?
Yeah. So I'm not doing. So yes, I was hired on as kind of like to kind of manage a creative hub in Milton, and so I did that for like a year, and now I'm sort of doing it like for free.
That's a sweet deal.
Yeah, that's a sweet deal. There was a lot of things that. Their focus was something different that I really wanted to focus on. And so their focus, which is great, was focusing on like brand new Canadians, focus on like kids under the age of 10. And so that was a very, very sort of like really, really narrow focus.
And it's really difficult to try and do something like that too.
Right, exactly. And so I'm like, well, when they age out, who's going to create stuff for them? If you're elderly, who's creating stuff for them? How do those two demographics connect? And so that's when I sort of started my own thing and really leveraging the really cool new music scene that kind of came out of the pandemic. And there's lots of great photographers and artists. And so I'm just kind of being this activator and sort of like organizer of the arts. Just because it's fun to do and I really love people.
Just arts or like just music or everything?
Everything. Music, culinary arts, visual arts, just whatever I can find. Just kind of like connect people together, create some ideas. And I don't want to be like the guy. What I want to be is the guy who inspires people to kind of do cool things in the community for others. So if we can use it to actually help people, great. If it's just a cool concert, that's cool too. But is there an angle that we can use this concert to kind of help people out? Or if you make food, great. How can we create really cool dishes with some extra that we can feed like the homeless or the poor or the people like me who were broke for half the pandemic. Like it's like find ways to kind of leverage, which is kind of like my vision statement, my personal vision statement is kind of like how can we leverage the creative arts for like spiritual and social change. That's always been my ethic in every worship pastor job I've ever had, and everything I do is how can I take this art form to not just do something cool with art, because that's big, but also to help people out, to serve people, to nourish people, to get people excited about life again. Like that's for me is the exciting thing with the arts.
But that sounds like a lot of charity work. I mean, how do you make money doing something like that?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
So,
like it's.
So you're in the same boat now. As you were during the
same boat. I'm doing more stuff now. And that's all. Yeah, it's really more of like a. I love. And I love to do it, and it's kind of like a life thing rather than a gig. And so I've gotten gigs out of it, for sure. And I think it is weird. Like the more you kind of give out, the more you get back. And so I've definitely gotten back like lots, and I'm very, very happy that people that I support have turned around and supported me back. But it's definitely not like a job. I wish it was.
Are you still leading worship?
I am. Funny enough,
I thought you were about to say, I am not.
To say. Like, I never thought I would go back to a church job. That's something I didn't really want to do.
On staff or just as a guy?
Either one.
Okay.
I didn't feel that was sort of my place in the world. There are people who are... especially going through what I went through, there are people who are a little bit more spiritually grounded than I felt that I was. But a buddy of mine who was going through the same sort of spiritual upheaval that I went through around the same time, he was a year, maybe 2 years ahead of me. He was already over his jadedness and stuff. He wasn't jaded anymore. So he was like, dude, I have this church. I would love you to be a part of it. And we can just work out our own things together. I'm like, that sounds safe. Because I never had a problem with Jesus. that for me was always
It's the people.
It's all those dumb
is.
humans.
Seriously.
Listen, we're messy. We're messy at the end of the day.
Like, if we can just get rid of the humans, church would be so much better. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. So it's been great. So I'm sort of serving at church there, and it's great to be with everybody on staff. They're like friends of mine. I've known them for years in different circles. We've all gone through our own spiritual upheaval and deconstruction and are on our way back up. And so it's great to kind of like, it's actually the best staff team I've ever worked with. And it's been really great.
Wow.
And are you on staff? Or
yes,
just,
I mean, it's
sort of?
Sort of. Like,
Okay.
it's minimal hours. Like,
Okay.
Like it's normally a church job for me has always been like music was the small part, and I had this other big sort of thing attached to my title, if you will.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
just music. That's all I do. So hours are pretty minimal,
Wow.
but that's great for what I need.
Which is what most music pastors or worship pastors should be doing, is 100% music. But what ends up happening in a church is, oh, well, you're good at this. We'll get you to do this
Right.
as well. Or
That's
we
right.
we have
For
this
sure.
void to fill. We'll just get Ayiesha to do it.
That's it. Like,
Right.
Like I've done
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm the website guy. I'm the youth and
Because you
young
can.
adults because I can.
Yeah.
Like I did like
Right.
there was one church I was working at where I did like we were very like sort of big like production. So like it was like always a brand new set design, and
Oh, gosh.
we would do like tons of video work. Like it was like almost like a mini movie every service, and I was the guy in charge of that. I did maybe 3 hours of music planning. The rest of it was like directing all this stuff, and that was fun and that was great, but it's nice to just kind of be, how can I make sure my volunteers are healthy and they're whole and
Yes.
they feel connected? How can I leverage these scriptures, these liturgies, and these songs to actually make sure that we are, as a church, kind of all on the same journey together, moving closer towards Christ, being more like him and loving like he does? That for me, even though the hours are minimal, which means my pay is minimal, that's totally fine, because at least I'm kind of doing what my heart is sort of was always been wanting to do.
Yes.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
I suppose
That's
with the compensation being minimal, it forces you as a self-employed
Right.
artist
Right.
to make sure that you don't get sucked into it, even if you enjoy it.
Right.
Because if it's like what I do for a living, I enjoy it, and
Right.
it's very easy for me to stay back at work just because I'm having fun at what I'm doing.
Right,
and then
right.
you let other important parts of your life slide, right?
And that was me for a
Gotta
while.
diversify.
Yeah, that was like for a long time. The artist thing was on the back burner. Like I was like, no, I'm a church guy. That's my focus. And then every once in a while, it's sort of like, oh, here's a song, and then that would take off, and then I'd be sort of find my way to how do I split my time between both worlds? This is a little bit easier because now I don't have to I can just focus on the music, and I still get to sort of help out and serve in this regard too. So it's nice.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, you said just a little bit ago that you had gotten away from writing and it was just music for a season. How did you get back to writing and putting words and lyrics to the sound? Was it something that happened, or like an experience, an encounter, or what?
You know what? I felt there was a part of me that felt like before, like I didn't have I didn't have the words to say, or I felt like I couldn't say the words because of just where I was at. I didn't feel like it was true to who I was, and it would have been like, okay, so like I remember writing like a worship song and be like, I don't believe these words, but I want to believe.
I hear you.
Okay. And I thought, I shouldn't do anything with this. I should just put this away. Which was, now looking back, like, no, there's nothing wrong. Like that's what faith is. It's kind of like
Right.
It's this risk in chasing
Blind faith for
this
real.
is it, right? And so I don't know if I believe this, but I really want to believe this. So God, show up in this way and encourage my heart and help me out and at least walk with me, which I know you will, whatever the case might be. So I didn't quite feel that it was honest, even though it totally was.
Hey, did you feel you were a hypocrite?
Completely.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, ugh,
Wow.
this is stupid. This is dumb. Like I want to believe this, but man, I don't. Actually, it makes me angry looking at these words on the page because I know I don't believe this right now. And I
Wow.
think for me, it's like I'm at the place now where I'm like, oh no, that's okay. Like if it's a song about life, like I do a lot of life songs too, where it's just about like, love or, like chasing after my kids or whatever the case might be. So I do life songs and I also do like worship stuff. And I think in either world, if you will, as long as they're true to who I am in this moment, that's all that matters. So if I have a song that's like, God, I don't know where you are. Do you even exist? I don't know, but I need you. That's not me saying there's no God. That's not me being. That's legit.
Yeah.
If you look at the Psalms, the Psalms are filled with those kind of songs. Like, oh God, come on, why have you?
Yeah.
Like, where are you? Show up. Just do something for once in your life, God. Sorry, I'm just kidding, everybody.
Right.
Just kidding. But but that's the kind of tension that's in there. And I think I was afraid of letting that tension being seen by other people, because the worship world that I've always seen. Has always been like, you have to be as perfect of a Christian as possible. And I've always been the opposite. I've always been like that. No, I'm like,
But when you have a song
Like,
that
I'm the rebel.
questions,
yeah, exactly.
when you have a song that questions, do you think that people might look at that and think to themselves, well, number one, why are you sharing this song?
Yes.
Because you obviously don't know the answer.
Right. And don't fully believe maybe or
Right,
whatever. Yeah.
right, and maybe it sends the wrong message. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
I
totally.
I get emails from listeners every once in a while where they'll send a note to the radio station saying, "Why are you playing this song?" It's
Right.
and I look at the lyrics to the song and I'm thinking, these are great lyrics.
Right.
And one of the songs was, believe it or not, "For King and Country, What Are We Waiting For?"
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's
Like,
a good song.
Like, what are we waiting for? It's asking, like, what are we waiting for, right?
yeah.
And then describing it. And this guy was saying, well, obviously it's not a Christian song because they're not singing about Christ. It's like, yeah,
Oh
but
my
what are
gosh.
they waiting for?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there
Right.
was also a part of me that was like, I didn't want to influence anybody in their own faith journey.
Sure.
I don't want to be like, oh, he's doubting. Maybe I should doubt too. I'm like, no. Okay, this is my journey, mine alone.
Right.
I don't want anybody to go through that.
But you'd probably be surprised to know that there are so many that are in the same place that you were.
Right.
So your ministry, your songs, and the lyrics would probably speak
Yes.
to a lot of people.
I think so. I just was, like afraid to, afraid to do the wrong thing or being seen as like doing the Christian music world injustice or people's spiritual life injustice.
Sure.
I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so at some
Right.
point I said, you know what, that's totally dumb of me. It's kind of blind of me to kind of do that. I think there needs to be some freedom. And so it took a while for me to reopen up myself to actually putting words on a page. And so now they're flowing pretty well. And so now I feel at home and free in kind of where I'm at, enough to kind of share and sing, which is what I've always wanted to do for a long time.
Ayiesha, I've mentioned this
Nice.
to you before about the whole term deconstruction. And my pet peeve
Yes.
with that expression is that people dwell on it. People continue to be in that place.
Right.
And what I've
Yeah.
said to Ayiesha in the past is like, what about the reconstruction?
Right.
What about,
Right.
are you just going to stay in that place or are you going to move on? You know, and you could choose to stay in that place if you want.
Yeah.
Like that's your
Right.
choice. It's your personal
Yep.
choice. Is it healthy? Probably not. Because you're obviously there for a reason.
Right.
Shouldn't you be searching? Shouldn't you be looking instead of just dwelling and wallowing in your pain and your sorrows and whatnot?
Right.
So
Self-pity.
Yeah.
People do stay, they hang out there.
yeah,
You know?
and instead of hanging out, why not move forward and explore? And I've always been a pessimistic,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
Yeah, I believe it.
And that's always perhaps in the church environment seen to be
Can I offer another word?
sure
Skeptical.
skeptical. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm a skeptic in the church realm, in the church, arena, that's a bad thing.
Yes, it
but
is.
it shouldn't be.
Right. I agree.
We
I
should
fully
all
agree.
be skeptics.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Actually, say it again.
Please,
Or-
please.
We should all be skeptics.
That's the clip. That's the clip.
That's the clip we'll use.
Yeah, I think so I agree, and I'm the same way. to a fault, I've always been like a spiritual skeptic, and that's not a bad thing. That's always been seen as a bad thing.
Yeah.
I remember growing up and having questions about faith and God and Christ, and all my questions about faith were seen as like questions against faith, like attacks against faith, and it wasn't. It was like, no, I want some clarity. I want some.
Right.
I just
Right.
I just want to understand.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so being a skeptic is great. And also going back to the deconstruction thing, I think it's like, you're right. Like people can choose to stay there, and that's totally fine. I think the idea is what we've. I might get in trouble for this. The goal is not to necessarily find your way back home. The goal is to sort of figure out, at least for me, I'll speak for my journey. I didn't want to sort of rebuild what I had before.
Right.
I
Yeah.
did not want to go
see.
back to the same faith journey. And
Yeah,
so the
I hear
idea of
you.
like
I hear you.
reconstructing means you're putting all those pieces back together to build the same thing that you lost.
Right.
For me, it's like, no, I want something brand new. So I want to deconstruct
Yes,
and then
sir.
shift. I don't want to rebuild that. I want something brand new. My faith journey has to be brand new. It has to be something different, completely. Like I wish, like when I started going through this, there weren't any like podcasts or books around it. So I was kind of like doing this on my own for a while. And oh my
Got
gosh,
you.
I'm so glad that there's so many people who have sort of been open and honest about their journeys, that
Yeah.
now the people who go through it can be like, oh, okay, this is okay. I don't need to throw
Right.
everything out at once. I don't need to like run away from my faith community. I don't need to like to burn everything down. You can do this in a healthy way in community. Or if you need to isolate yourself, that's totally fine. But at least you know that you're not alone. And I think that for me is huge. So yeah, I think like you're right. Like people can sort of wallow in that a little bit. And some people, that's what they need to do. But at least I hope if you're out there listening and you're going through a faith crisis, know that you're not alone. And there's tons of resources and tons of even spiritual communities that you can sort of hang out at, and they will help heal or at least walk with you as you sort of figure out your faith journey.
I see that hand. I see that.
There
I
we
see
go.
all
There
those
we go.
hands.
There.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Amen.
I just look with everything that you've been saying, Drew. I keep remembering that one scripture in Malachi. God's like, prove me now.
Right.
And people.
Yeah, but that was Old
people
Testament. We
take
can't do that now.
Come on now.
But that's exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly
prove
right.
Me. He's like,
yes.
prove me. He's not afraid of our questions,
Right.
is what I'm saying. And that's why I love him so much, because when we're in our funk, when we're in our seasons of great questions, and he's like, look, I'm right here.
Right.
Been here all this time. Bring me your questions. I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to meet you right where you are, And when you said, if there's anyone out there listening, I was like, this guy's got a great radio voice.
Thanks. Yeah, it's you're totally right. It's God is not afraid of our little questions and our little doubts.
Yeah.
They might feel big. I don't mind we're big.
I think everybody
Mine are
else is
still
afraid
big.
of our questions.
And that's what I was going to
Yes,
say.
they are.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And so I think that's the weird thing is like, because people in my life who were in ministry, they are God's voice to me. That sounds weird. That's not what I meant to say, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like they are
You would
No, I
you
get
would
it.
expect them to be.
right. They're kind of like they are like the spiritual leaders in my life. And so
Right.
they're kind of like, oh man, that sounds so weird. I won't say that anymore.
Sounds so religious when you say that.
Yeah, right. So they're
Yes.
and so like if they have issues with what I'm feeling or saying or thinking or doubting, then I'm like, oh, that means God must as well.
Right.
And man, I was so wrong for that.
Yeah.
I remember once I was talking to Holly and the
Why Me Project?
Why Me Project, and they had me on the show years ago. This is when I was fresh in my deconstruction, and I said something. I got so much like emails about this. It was horrible, but I said I had to like kill God to find God, and what I meant by that, and I explained, I was like, the God that I was given as a kid or as a teenager or as a young adult, it wasn't God in his pure form. It was like tainted by this minister or like changed by this youth pastor. It wasn't quite the accurate Yahweh.
Right.
And so I took all their versions of God as like the one true God. I'm like, no, actually, no. Let me delete that one. Because the God that I believe in is so gracious and filled with so much mercy and love and hope and is big enough for all our doubts and questions. And so I had to kill God.
Sure enough.
To find the real God. And that was like when I sort of like went through that process, like, okay, this is good. This feels right. And this is the God that I read about in the Bible. This is the God that I see doing amazing work with the hungry and with the poor and with the widows and the orphan. That's the God. That's the Christ that I want to be all about. And so, yeah, I got so many emails around that. People were so angry when I said that.
We'd like to, here at Between the Grooves, we'd like to bump up our ratings. So feel free to complain, send us emails, comments, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, we'd love that.
That's right.
Oh, they're gonna come in.
Oh man. I like causing a little trouble, a little rabble rouser. That's me.
I think Christians should be doing that though.
I think so too.
To each other, and there's nothing wrong with it. I get really tired of the whole the church and being a club. A club of all these perfect people that go around and smile and go through the motions and stuff, and yet it's not really personal. I think the personal touch is gone in many areas, and maybe part of it is due to the pandemic where you didn't have that face-to-face contact, and now you do again, and people are kind of get readjusted. I remember even during the pandemic, it was probably a few months in, maybe even a full year into it, when I got together with a friend of mine and we were at a park just having a coffee and it was outdoor gathering.
Yep.
And I was telling him, I think the biggest problem that the pandemic has caused is people don't know how to interact with each other anymore because everything's been online.
That's
right? You don't know how to react to facial expressions except on a camera, but now face to face, now you can see all of me, my arms, my hands, my,
right.
And all that other stuff. And you can, an email, when you send an email, you don't know the tone of an email, right?
Right.
And so it could be sarcastic or it could be actually complimentary, and you could take it either way. I saw a skit online or whatever about, emails going back and forth between two friends, and they were both reading it completely different. And they thought the other person was like hating on him and being completely ridiculous, and yet they were all well-intentioned notes and stuff. And so I think that's a lot of what's happened during the pandemic is we've probably lost touch with a lot of that. And I think the church has in general. This isn't a hate on for the church or anything, but I think the church has got a lot of work ahead. I think the pandemic probably helped the church in the sense that it forced them to get with the times, technology-wise. But now there's a lot more work bringing people back into the fold and developing relationships and
I agree.
And allowing and expecting and letting questions be part of that whole growing for everybody.
Yes. I think I know that in Canada anyway, for the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years, mainline churches have been sort of like, dropping in numbers. But now we're seeing evangelical churches are doing the same, especially on this side of the pandemic. So numbers are dropping and churches are closing. And so churches are now sort of trying to figure out, like, how do we keep people? How do we gain people? How do we connect to people? And that's a struggle. That's a huge struggle. And a big part of it, in my opinion, is how we've already done the thing where, yes, online is so great because it helps people who can't go to church for whatever reason, because church on the property is pretty ableist in a lot of ways. There are people who just can't go.
Yep.
So having an online version that's good quality, that's great.
Now you can meet the needs of people that perhaps never got that opportunity.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine.
And you did say great quality.
in great
That
quality.
makes a huge difference.
Totally, right? But it's just like
Absolutely. Oh my-
it's just like that should have been happening like in the early 2000s where we had the technology to come. When YouTube was kind of being the thing. I mean, yes, there's money and there's like you can't do everything, but like there was an opportunity there, especially in the 2010s. Sorry, where YouTube was becoming huge, where churches really should have jumped on that bandwagon. How do we do this for the local community who
Absolutely.
can't come to our church? Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to jump in right
Yeah.
now because I was at a conference or a seminar or whatever a few years ago. This was probably a year or two before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the pandemic's not even on the radar. Nobody even knows what a pandemic is. That
Yeah.
sort of
Can't
that sort of
spell
idea.
pandemic. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Right.
one of the questions that was asked was, how long do you think church as we know it will be around? And my response to that was, I'll give it a decade and that's it. And the reason why I said
wow.
that is because
You called it, huh?
well, it had nothing to do with the pandemic. I was just talking about the fact that the church has not adapted. It hasn't used technology. It hasn't used what people are using every day, right?
This is very
Everybody's on social media, right? Everybody's on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and they're watching videos. I mean, you can't even. I used to have satellite TV at home.
Right.
Right. I don't have satellite TV anymore. I don't even have cable anymore.
Right, neither do I. Exactly.
Everything's online. Everything's internet.
That's
right.
right.
And but the church didn't adapt with all of
right.
that stuff over the years, and so they're using old technology, an old means of way of trying to communicate with people, and people are communicating differently now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I wanted to jump in about that because you were talking about.
But that's legit.
Churches.
And that's still the case. Like that's let me say this. That's not just an opinion of yours. That's actually becoming fact. Where churches in Canada, like I don't know what's in the States. I don't have no idea what's happening down there, but here in Canada, like many doors are closing. And that's going to happen
No, it's
more and
happening
more and
here
more.
too.
Yeah, see, so I think like the churches need to find a way to once again sort of pivot. But I think at this point, it's not just technology, but it's also how do we? And this goes back to in terms of like what I do in my town, in terms of like leveraging the creative arts. How do we find a way to be the church in our neighborhoods? How do we like be so present there? And not just on a Sunday morning, but like Monday through Saturday. How to be so present and so known that we become the local hub for our neighborhoods. And if you're a city church, that's fine. Then usually if you're a city church, like a large or mega church, then you have the power and the ability to kind of even spread your arms further to wrap around them across your city. So for me, it's like...
Community.
So like right before the pandemic, I was actually doing a tour to different churches, talking to churches about how to be more grounded in their place and space, which means like, okay, so if nothing is happening from Monday to Friday, you can open up your doors and create like a workspace, like a shared workspace for like, local entrepreneurs. You can, create like daycare options, like really cheap or for free. You can do like youth drop-in centers. You can do all these things.
But that's unthinkable. Because churches Monday to Friday, their doors are locked. The only people that are there are the staff.
The staff, that's right.
Yeah.
So we have all this beautiful and
Sorry for my
glorious space.
sarcasm,
No,
but-
but like, right?
Yeah.
You have all this beautiful and glorious space, amazing space. Well, then utilize it. Like, I know a lot of churches that have like their own recording studio. Great. Start like a cheap recording school. Have the fee be minimum just to make sure that someone gets paid to kind of do the work, or just keep the lights on. And you can have all these young kids learning new skills. Like there's one church in St. Catharines where they spend most of their open hours as like a drop-in center for homeless people. They sleep there, they eat there, they shower there. I'm like, good. The only time that they're not there is Sunday mornings, and when that happens, they're in another space having breakfast. Otherwise than that, it's for them.
Right.
I'm like, if every church in the world, no, let me stop. If every church in the GTA did something focused in their own neighborhoods, in their own place and space, we would actually change the city. That feels more like Christ than me putting on a worship concert.
Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with doing a worship concert.
sir.
Even if it's free.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. Nothing wrong. I'm not saying anything bad against worship concerts. They're great, they're cool. I'm not saying that. But as the church, we need to be immobilized to be Jesus in our place and space. And one of my biggest sort of like frustrations is that the church has become so lazy and so much about production and so much about the hype and not about like Christ. I'm going to get in trouble for that.
No, no, Drew.
I'm sorry, everybody.
I understand what you're saying, and I think part of it too is the concept or the idea of this is what church
should be or has to be.
has been.
Yes.
I'm talking about the current mentality
I'm
for
sorry,
many churches.
I'm sorry. Gotcha.
This is the way it has been, and so
Right.
that's the way it will continue to be.
Right. Yeah.
That's all right.
I'm really passionate about finding ways for the church to just be a bit more grounded. Like, yeah, find ways to get online because let's not be ableist. And also how to, reach into the neighborhoods because like that's where we live, that's where we grow. Find ways to kind of just serve, not to serve to be like, hey, look at us, look what we're doing,
Right.
But like, just be present in your spaces. There's tons of need right there, and also downtown and also uptown. But like, first of all, start with your neighborhood first, and then grow from there. And you'll be surprised how many people will begin to show up on a Sunday morning. I'm going to remove that. It's not about getting more people into the building, but people want to be part of something. And so if you're doing something cool, people just naturally want to be part of something cool too. Cool is a horrible word to use, but you know what I'm saying.
I wouldn't use the word
not cool. Not cool. Yeah,
because now it's the club again.
Exactly. Yeah, I think like generosity is catchy. Like people love acts of generosity. People love acts of service. Like it's awesome to be a part of something that's doing great things. Like if like a couple weeks ago, a buddy of mine did a cool little food drive, and she's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have it at this bar. Bring your stuff. We're gonna have some bands playing, whatever." The amount of food that she got is incredible. Massive amounts of food, and this is not like a church. It's not like a big organization. It's one person just putting it on Facebook. Hey, I'm gonna do a cool food drive at this bar. We'll have a couple bands playing. Come by. People just kept on swinging by, dropping off food.
See?
Because people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Let me say that again.
Yes.
People want to be a
said
part
it.
of something bigger than themselves. So let's give them the opportunity to do that.
How can we do that as a church without being
dogmatic and
church lingo, like
churchy.
Without being too churchy. Because right now, if you want to volunteer in your church, it's like, would you like to become an usher? Would you like to become part of the worship team?
Right.
Would you like to teach Sunday school? And maybe it should be maybe it's not called the worship team. Maybe it's called the music team because they do more than just music on a Sunday morning. They do music in the evenings or in the summertime. They just have outdoor whatever. Concerts or whatever,
that's right.
just for fun. And maybe instead of a person that serves up or organizes a potluck, maybe it's a community shelter or food for people in need, that sort of thing. And so I guess what I'm saying is maybe we've become too churchy. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like maybe that's
it makes sense.
We're coming out of we're out of the pandemic now. Maybe there's a lot more work that needs to be done. That's what I'm thinking.
Work. And if your church wants to do some work,
Jesus did it.
You can hire me for only $5. No, I'm just kidding. And I'll come to your church and show you how to. No, you're totally right though. I think it's. And I think there are a lot of churches who are like trying to find ways to do that. It's kind of like let's sort of be less insular and less kind of looking at ourselves all the time and find ways to kind of look out and serve and just be present. And that's really really cool. I just really long for that to be the norm, where every church is kind of like, how can we be just present in our neighborhoods? How can we serve the needs of others? How can we? Because I think that for me is way more exciting than playing the cool song with the cool screens, with the cool lights, with the cool this and the cool pastor. And I don't care about that stuff. I don't care.
Right.
Jesus didn't care about that stuff. Why should I?
Exactly. You do it his way.
Right? He was always out there doing, like, with the people, serving.
With the people.
I want to do that.
And he fed them.
I want to do that.
Fed them.
That for me is church. That for me is where my spirit comes alive. That's where I begin to, air quotes, reconstruct my faith. Because I'm doing the work of Christ.
Right.
Yes.
And that for me is good for my heart and good for my soul. I don't really care about like singing the new Chris Tomlin or the new Maverick, though the new Maverick is pretty hype, I gotta say. I don't care about that. That's yeah. Let me go do cool stuff. Let me be Jesus.
Let me be bold and say that I have in the last during the pandemic and even pre-pandemic, I think I've gotten more church outside of church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because to me, it's anything from having coffee with a friend
Right.
to showing up at an event or
Yes.
helping out somewhere,
Yes.
or helping out a neighbor, or helping out people, or maybe it's just attending a funeral and being there for somebody, versus going into a church building and following the same format of,
That's it.
we're going to sing 3 songs or 4 songs.
religious.
Yeah, it's very religious.
People are such a creature of habit, and I think that churches are exactly that. Which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But
I mean,
also-
I'm guilty, brother.
Same
I'm
here, all the
guilty
time.
'cause-
Yeah.
But I just
'cause
think we need
I
to.
came up in church, and we need to make an effort. We need to be intentional about making a change,
Right.
And for so many of us, people don't like change.
Nope.
We don't like change.
Nope.
Change is uncomfortable.
It is.
Man, and it shakes us up. And when we start talking about being intentional and doing things that completely rock our world, and it's a culture. It's church culture as we've known it. And I don't think that it's easy, because change isn't easy.
That's right. That's right.
But if we have the mindset and maintain the Great Commission, really do it like Jesus did it. He talked his lingo. He was talking to farmers and fishermen, and when he ministered to those people, he was talking about fishing.
Yeah, he was talking about stuff
farming.
that they can relate to.
You know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he fed them. So he met them right where they were.
That's right.
And yeah. But we really do have to be more intentional.
Yes. Hey, I'm going to talk about myself for a little bit.
Yeah, we're only talking about Drew here. So
Yeah, that's right. It's my show now. It's my show now. Guess what?
what?
I got nominated for an award.
You did.
I did.
You did. Congratulations. Not that you need another one,
Not
quite
that-
frankly.
No, I can use a few more. I can use a few more. My next award will hopefully be like best human. That's what I'm really aiming for. I'm going for that one. No. Are you going to the Covenants though? In all
What
seriousness?
category?
Oh, sorry. Best instrumental album. I think it is.
So this
Okay.
is Hymns for the Architect.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes. Which
I'm
I'm
gonna
really
go download it when we get off.
Yeah, it's check it out. It's cool. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm
a fan of myself.
I'm a fan of me. No, I'm really excited about that, because that album was like that was a struggle. That was sort of like the tipping point for me in terms of like I'm ready to write like words again. I'm ready. That almost was an album with words, and maybe I'll release that. But I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'm really excited to kind of be there.
Congratulations. I know
Thank you.
you've won.
Yes.
There was one year you won a whole pile of them.
Yeah, that was weird, eh?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's nothing new for you, but congratulations nonetheless. I mean, is this the first time for this category for you? Or have you won?
Second time,
Second
I
time.
think.
Okay.
Second time, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But there's a ton. I listen to all the other like artists in that category. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
Yeah, it should be interesting. But also I'm really pumped about releasing the next Drew Brown album, which I haven't done in like almost 10 years.
Is that what it's going to be called? The Drew Brown
It is.
album?
It is.
Nice.
I'm on. Are you familiar with the artist Peter Gabriel, Ayiesha?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
So I run on his schedule. He usually releases an album like every 10 years.
Okay.
And so I look
gosh.
I watch him. If I see if he's releasing something, then I'll release something.
But how many cuts? Is
that's
this going to be like
awesome.
50 cuts on this album, or?
On his, probably. On mine, no.
That's what I was asking.
So yeah.
And you have to have a stage production like he is.
Oh
too,
my gosh.
At some point in time. Could you imagine?
Seriously, that would be insane and awesome. But yeah, I'm just excited about like just releasing music again.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'll sing backup.
Actually, you know what?
I always offer, and nobody
You know
takes me
what?
up on it. They all think I'm just kidding. You
I'm
know?
gonna have my people talk to your people.
Oh, that means nothing. 'Cause my people is your. I mean, yeah. So have you started working on this already? He's just laughing.
so many
at how old
layers
you're-
to that.
I know. Have you started working on this album already?
I have. Yeah, I have. Right now, I'm just like voice notes and like pen and paper, sort of writing some stuff down.
Right.
But for the first time, like in a long time, I feel excited about music again. I feel excited about like releasing the stuff and getting the band back together and hopping into the studio or wherever we record and just sort of seeing what we create together. I'm really excited about that.
Speaking of creating,
That's very cool.
Yeah,
speaking of creating, we are up for a Covenant Award as well.
Yeah.
And it's not
Isn't that cool?
It's
That's
not
so
to toot
cool.
our own horn, but I only mention it because Drew, you helped build this podcast. You really did. I mean, this podcast wouldn't be here if it weren't for you being the original co-host on this show and the guests that we had and conversations we had and stuff and building it from the ground up. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. It's been.
Drew, you got to give me some tips, brother.
You're doing a fine job already. Trust me. I remember interviewing you. I remember like you were one of our first. Wasn't she one of the first like interviews we did? Like third or second podcast? Or were we trying to get her?
I don't know.
I honestly can't remember because we've had. I mean, we're into
Well, a year.
200 and something odd episodes
Oh,
and
my
stuff.
God.
I swear that we did a podcast with you because when I heard that Ayiesha, you're coming onto the podcast, I was like, that's a full circle moment.
It is.
Because it was like, I remember you
That's
being
so
one of the
neat.
first ones. I was like, this is amazing. It was perfect. It was like, that's perfect. So yeah.
And how green were we when we started?
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember the first episode?
I don't. It was just you
I
and
remember,
me, right?
Yeah, it was just you and I.
Yeah, I remember that.
And what I remember, and Ayiesha, this will blow your mind, but and
Okay.
I think I might have alluded to this in the past, but I'm a radio guy, so you keep things short, tight, concise.
Right.
And Drew and I were scrambling, trying to fill time. Like, how are we going to fill, 20 minutes or a half hour,
Yeah,
40 minutes or
yeah,
whatever?
that's right.
And that's what we were doing. We spent probably 20 minutes, half an hour just mapping out what are we going to talk about.
Yeah.
And is that enough?
And look,
Look at us now.
Look at us now.
all
We
we
can't
do is-
shut up.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Just talking about nothing for an hour. It's great.
Oh man, it's been so fruitful. It's been great.
This has been
I've
awesome.
enjoyed this
I've-
very much.
This has
Good.
been a great, great conversation. I really enjoyed that. Thanks, Drew, for dropping
We need
by.
to do it again.
Oh, honestly, anytime,
totally
anytime.
gotta
It's a joy to be back here. A joy. See what I just did there? It's a joy.
Yes. Drew, you have an open invitation. Anytime you've got, that you
Thanks,
want to stop by and say hello, you're always welcome.
I'll
here.
bring coffee next time.
That's good. Well, sorry. I could have gone
Let's
for
all
you a
go
coffee
to the
when you
Covenant
came by.
Awards. Just saying.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
My, oh my, I can't believe how long we chatted.
It was so good, though. Like, time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I'm so looking forward to the opportunity to do that again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we covered a lot of ground, but there's a lot of stuff we didn't even touch. So, yeah, we
I know,
definitely
my
got to bring
goodness.
Drew back. He's a great guy. Love that guy.
Yes, he is. So right here, we're going to check out some artist advice from Luke with Rocky Worship.
For just anybody in ministry right now, I would say trust yourself. Mainly trust your calling. I would have walked away from this thing if I didn't trust my calling. And so anybody who's walking through some hard times right now and you're on the edge, you're like, I think I'm done with this. Trust your calling and trust that God's going to use it.
What I'm hearing here is when you're on the verge of giving up, still keep on keeping on. Trust your calling.
Yeah, absolutely. Just know what it is that he called you to from the very beginning. Great reminder.
Yeah, for sure. And that is it. We are out of time. I can't believe how the time has flown, but really appreciate Drew dropping by to chat.
Yeah.
And we are back next week on Between the Grooves.
See you then.
Thanks for listening to Faith Strong Today's Between the Grooves podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider sharing it with your friends, rating our podcast, or giving us some love on your socials to your amazing friends and followers will only help us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you and share your feedback in an upcoming episode. Send your video or written message to Ayiesha and James on Facebook and Twitter at Between Grooves, or email us anytime, hello@faithstrongtoday.com.